Evicting a tenant can seem like a complicated process, but in this video we'll quickly explain the eviction laws in Illinois and outline some simple steps that landlords can take to initiate an eviction. First, what is an eviction? An eviction is the process of legally removing a tenant. It's illegal for a landlord to change locks on a property or physically remove a tenant from that property. So if the tenant refuses to leave after violating the terms of a lease agreement, a landlord must seek an eviction from the court. This is different from the simple termination of a lease. A landlord can opt not to renew a lease after the specified term has ended. There is no need to involve a court in this process. In this video, we'll talk about what the eviction process looks like, Illinois laws that determine how evictions are handled, and how to legally remove a non-compliant tenant from a property. Be sure to watch to the end of this video to find a link to a fillable eviction notice. If a tenant in Illinois fails to pay rent or commits some other breach of a lease agreement, the landlord can issue what's known as a notice to quit. There are several versions of this form and each is used in a different situation. A 5-day notice to quit can be served in the event that the tenant fails to pay rent. This instructs the tenant to either pay the unpaid rent within 5 days or risk being evicted. Outside of Chicago, landlords can charge a late fee for rent returned later. The late fee can be $20 or 20% of the rental fee for each month, whichever is greater. The landlord can also choose to begin the eviction process if the rent remains unpaid. A form known as a 5-day notice to quit for unlawful activity is used when the tenant is caught engaging in illegal activity. State law says a tenant who uses or permits the use of leased property for any act that would constitute a felony or Class A misdemeanor under Illinois statutes must vacate the premises within 5 days. There's also a form called a 10-day notice to quit that can be served on a tenant who's found to be non-compliant with the terms of the lease in some way that's not related to payment of rent. An example is housing an unauthorized pet. The notice gives the tenant 10 days to fix the problem before being evicted. There's also a form called a 30-day notice to quit that's used for tenants on month-to-month leases. This form just ends the tenancy by giving the tenant 30 days notice that the lease will not be renewed. If the tenant does not fix the problem identified in a notice to quit and continues to live on the property, the landlord can bring an action in the local circuit court. The way to do this is by filing 2 forms known as the summons and the complaint. These forms can be found on our website or at a local circuit court. The summons tells the tenant a lawsuit is being filed. The complaint gives the court all of the information needed to open a case against the tenant. 3 copies must be made of the summons and the complaint. 1 copy of each will go to court, the landlord, and the tenant. To file these forms in Illinois, the fee is $234. Copies of both the summons and the complaint should then be served on the tenant. In Illinois, the proper process for doing this involves taking copies to the sheriff's department and paying the sheriff a fee of $60 to hand deliver them. Once this step is complete, the court will set a hearing date. Both parties must attend the hearing. If the tenant doesn't show up or if the judge rules in the landlord's favor, the court will authorize an eviction order. This document orders the tenant to move out. If the tenant still refuses to vacate the property, a copy of the eviction order can be taken to the sheriff. The order authorizes the sheriff to remove the tenant and the tenant's possessions from the property. We've got everything you need to get eviction proceedings going, from eviction notices to court documents, and you can access all of them at the link below for free.